Hi everyone! So we've made it to Module 4, and this week we're going to be talking about how to go out into the world and find the first work of art for your collection. So this is really my favorite week because it combines everything we've talked about for the past 3 weeks, and now we get to go put into practice what we've learned. So today I'm going to be talking to you about where you can buy art, the different venues, whether it be an auction house, a gallery, through an art advisor, and what are the steps and processes that you should take in any of those locations. So the first marketplace is at an auction. The pros of buying at an auction are that you can get a deal. So when works are sold at auction, they generally sell for about half or even less than that of what something would sell for in a retail environment. So if you were to see the same print at an auction at a gallery, the gallery would usually be about twice the cost of an auction house. There are some exceptions to this, of course. The contemporary market is a little strange and can be an exception to this, but generally that's kind of the standard. So why is that? Well, often retailers, galleries go to auction, they purchase prints, and then they have to raise the price of that to cover their own costs, their overhead, as well as getting a profit from selling. The con is that auctions are a buyer beware environment. So the auction house will provide you with a catalog description, condition report. We'll talk more about that in a second. But they're not going to hold your hands like a gallery would. And one of the reasons why people go to galleries is because there is that more personal experience of really getting to know a gallery owner or a dealer. And there's a level of trust there. And so that added price that you see at a gallery is often because of that as well. So if you do buy at an auction, you really need to know what you're buying. And the research that we talked about last week, some of the research skills that will help you be sure of what you're buying. And the last con is that there is a time issue here. There's a lack of time. Work sold at auction are shown for a few days at a public preview before the sale, and the auction itself moves very, very quickly. So you have to be quick on your feet. You have to be a quick decision maker. And I'm going to talk about in a minute the steps you need to take if you do choose to buy at auction, how you can be prepared so you don't overspend, you don't get swept up in the moment as people tend to do. But first, I want to talk about what are the different auction houses, and if you don't know where an auction house is, where can you find one? So there are different tiers of auction houses. The top are Sotheby's and Christie's, which are located in New York, and they sell works in the millions of dollars. And then you get to your mid-tier houses, places like Bonham's, Phillips, Doyle, that sell works within a range in the hundreds as well as in the hundreds of thousands. You also have regional auction houses. So every city will probably have their own regional auction house. Leslie Hinman is in Chicago, Skinner is in Boston, Brunk is in Asheville, Freeman's is in Philadelphia, Rachel Davis is in Cleveland. These are just a few examples, and these are some examples that I think have really kind of stepped up the regional auction house game and who are very good and also very trustworthy. You have houses that specialize in certain things. So Wright, which is also located in Chicago, it really has modern art and design. It's mostly design, furniture, things like that. And Rago is very, very similar. You then have estate auctions, which are all over. So smaller auction houses, things that are a bit more rural, but where you can still find interesting things if you know what you're looking for. And lastly, there are the online venues. So online auction houses are exploding. You have invaluable.com, which is actually an aggregate of brick and mortar auction houses. So Doyle, Leslie Hinman, Skinner, all of these places list their works not only on their own website, but also on Invaluable, and you can bid online through that. Bidsquare.com is very similar. It's a bit more selective in who they allow to post on their website. It was started by Leslie Hinman, actually, in Chicago. So they're higher standards, but also they list their catalogs. You can bid online through them. And then you have places like Paddle 8 and Auctionado, which are just exclusively online auction houses. So Auctionado does have a public preview, but Paddle 8, you can't necessarily see the works in person, and that's kind of the downside of bidding online, is that you can't examine the works in person often. But it's also very convenient and makes things very easy, makes things easy to find online. So with anything, there are pros and cons. So what's the process? So once you find an auction house, and I really suggest you look at those auction houses I listed, go to Invaluable, look at the different auction houses, ones that are near you, go to their websites, just kind of see how they do business. Some auction houses have specialized sales where they have a continental furniture, and then they have an impressionist art, and then they have a modern furniture, and but some just do estate sales once a month and mix everything all together. So get a sense of how the auction house does business and when you can go to a preview. So once you find that auction house and you find a sale that you're interested in, browse the catalog, see what they have for sale, mark a few things, do this in the comfort of your own home. And then what you can do is you can go to visit the exhibition, which, as I said, is usually about 3 to 5 days before the actual sale. The auction house will put all the works out on their exhibition floor, and you can go, you can touch things, don't be afraid to handle works of art. You're not in a museum, you're in an auction house. So open the drawers on a piece of furniture, or ask to see a work on paper outside of the frame. Ask to see a painting black lighted so you can look for damage. All of these things are very, very important. You don't need to be so precious about works of art in this auction house environment. You'll see, especially if you go into some of the smaller ones, it's very kind of gritty, I guess is the word. They don't, there's not this preciosity that they put on all of the art. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And to really handle the pieces and to look very closely at them for damage. Because that's really why you want to go to an exhibition, is to look to see if there are any issues with it. And if you can't go to the preview, if the auction house is in California and you live in Illinois or something like that, what you want to do is request photographs and a condition report. So a condition report, what it is, it's a note by the specialist in charge of the sale of any condition issues. So if there's a painting and there's crackler, they're going to mention that. If it's a piece of porcelain and it's been repaired, if it's a piece of Meissen porcelain and the head's been broken off, they're going to say it has been re-glued. And then always ask for extra photographs as well of the damage, as well as it's just nice sometimes to see things in the natural light. I look at prints a lot at auction, and if you look at them online, often if it's professional photographs, they're beautiful, they're well lit, the prints look great. But when I ask for it in natural light, I can see some of the damage, I can see if the paper's been toned a little bit. So it's really helpful to see it in a more natural way. After you do that and you gather some more information, you want to go and do your research and look up comparable sales. So go back to last week and look into the artist, look into how the work fits into the artist's entire oeuvre, and look up comparable sales, because you don't want to overspend. And as I said, you can get swept up in the moment of auction. It's very, very easy. So what I want you to do, if you do buy at auction, make a list of the lots, the artist, the title, and then write down how much you are willing to spend. So how do you find how much you're willing to spend? Like I said, go and look at comparable sales, look on the auction market, and see what else has been selling by this artist for those prices. Go to ArtNet, go to Invaluable, all of the other websites that I mentioned last week should be helpful to help you find comparable sales. And then decide how much you're willing to spend. And when you decide, take into account buyer's premium and other fees like shipping. So buyer's premium is the commission that the auction house takes on the sale. Usually it's about 25%. Sometimes it's a little less, sometimes it's a little more. So read the fine print in the back of the catalog. There will always be conditions of sale. So read that. Know exactly what you're signing up for when you register to bid. So say you're willing to spend $1,000, you need to include another $250 on top of that, and then for shipping is maybe another $100 at around $100. So even if you bid $1,000 and when the hammer goes down, they say it's sold for $1,000. In fact, what you're paying is about $1,350. So how do you bid? There are 4 different ways. You can bid in person, which you go to the auction house the morning of, you register, you get a paddle, you sit down in the audience and you wait for your lot to come up. So that's one way. And it's fun. It's really fun to go to auctions and to see what's being sold, to see the different personalities there and how it all works. And I suggest, in fact, even if you're not interested in anything, go to an auction house and sit there and kind of see what the whole deal is. And don't be afraid about raising your hand or you'll accidentally bid on something. Any auctioneer worth his salt will, knows who's bidding and knows who isn't. So don't worry about that. So you can bid in person. And they'll give you a number with a paddle, and if you win, you just hold up your paddle, they take the paddle number down, and then they, after the sale is over, will send you an invoice. So you can literally walk in, register, get a paddle, bid on your item, give the paddle right back to the people at the front desk and walk out, and you'll receive an invoice later. It's pretty simple. The other way you can bid is absentee. So if you're not able to make it to the sale, you can fill out a form before the sale begins. Make sure that you send it in about a day in advance so you know that they're registering your bid. And you say, I want to bid on lot 5 and I'm willing to spend this $500. And then the auctioneer, when they are bidding, when they open the bid, they'll see that they have a bid of $500, so they'll start at $250 and there's somebody in the audience who wants to bid $300, and then they'll bid on your behalf $350 all the way up to $500. Another tip for you is to, when you register to bid, you can say, I want to do $500 plus 1. What that plus 1 is that sometimes when an auctioneer opens a bid, they get your bid a little off track. So instead of opening at $250, they open at $275, and then you bid for $75. They're bidding on your behalf for $475. Someone bids $500, and then you're out of luck. So you don't get to bid that extra $25. So what the plus 1 means is that you could bid $525 instead. A little behind the scenes tip, auctioneers do, when they see that plus 1, they try to always get that extra $25, so they will start at the right increment. But sometimes, they mess up. So that's why it is kind of nice to have that buffer there, just as a precaution if it's something that you really, really want. Another concern that I've heard from people about absentee bidding is that they feel like the auctioneer will take advantage of their bid, meaning that they will, if there's no other competition, no other bidders, that they will sell it to them for a high price. In my experience, I've not seen that happen. So I don't think that if you're going to, reputable auction houses, you should not worry about that. The other option is telephone if you can't make it and you don't want to bid absentee and you're going to be free during the day, you're near your telephone, you can register to telephone bid. And basically what that is that about 5 lots before your lot is up for sale, someone at the auction house will call you and they'll say, I used to do this all the time, so I know what they say. They say, hi, this is Sarah, I'm calling from whatever auction house. We'll be bidding together on this lot. And then they will bid on your behalf. So you can say to them, okay, please bid up to $500 for me. And they will go ahead when the lot is up for sale, they will raise their hand for you up to $500. What you can also do is they will tell you what's going on in the room. So you can say how many people are in the room. How is the sale going today? You can get a sense of what is actually happening in the room, even though you aren't there. And then if you don't give them that max of bid up to $500, they'll say, okay, this lot is opening at $250. Would you like to bid $275? And you say yes, or you say bid, and they'll bid on your behalf. Sometimes other people get ahead of you just because there's a little lag when you're on the telephone. So sometimes if there's a lot of interest in a certain work, a phone bidder might say to you, okay, I'm just going to let it slow down, and then when it slows down, we'll see if you have any interest still. So, people in the room are bidding $275, $300, $325, $350, $375, $400, and around $400 it slows down, and they'll say, okay, do you want to bid $425? And you can say yes or no. So again, though, it's very hectic, so make sure you know your values or how much you're willing to spend. And for people who are starting on telephone bidding, I suggest that they say at the beginning, okay, bid up to this amount for me. The last way you can bid is online. So you can register generally through an auction house's website, through sites like Invaluable or BidSquare, and they have a little live video feed of the auction. And when the item's up for sale, you can say, okay, you can just click a button and say, yes, I'd like to bid. So that's kind of the simplest way. I suppose you have a little more control over it as well. It's a little slower though, so sometimes you miss certain bids just because it takes the website lags a bit. But I like bidding online as well as I will say personally I usually bid. Well, I do all four, depending on where the auction is. But each one's a little bit different. So try different ways as well and see what it is that you like. Auctions are really fun. They're nothing to be afraid of. Some people are afraid of them. But I think if you kind of go, and check them out and go first just to kind of see what's happening at an auction house, they're really fun. And then post-sale. So after the sale, after you pay, of course, you can either pick it up in person, or often you have to organize shipping on your own, and they will have a list of shippers for you that they work with. I've never had any issues. They usually take care of things. If there are some condition issues with a certain work, consider having it restored by a conservator. You might want to have the item reframed, and then lastly, hang it and enjoy it. So an auction, like I said, there are a lot of steps, and this is the longest kind of explanation I'll have for you today, because it can seem from an outsider to be a little complicated and a little intimidating. So I hope some of these tips are helpful, and if you have any questions, definitely email me. I'm happy to speak to you about the process, because I know it can be a bit daunting. But now we're going to move on to galleries. So a gallery, they take greater accountability for what they're selling. A dealer will stand by what they're selling. Auction houses, they catalog things very, very quickly. So things either, fall through the cracks. Sometimes they make mistakes. So again, when you're buying an auction house, you have to be very, very aware. And you have to be aware at a gallery as well. There are some galleries that, make mistakes, mostly, unwittingly, but, so you still have to do your research, but there's more of a personal relationship there. And so you will get more personalized attention, and you'll get your hand held a little bit more, which some people really enjoy. The con is, as I mentioned before, it's more expensive. It's about 2 to 3 times. You pay for that extra attention. You pay for them really framing the art the way that, in a very nice way, that didn't just come out from an estate and hasn't been taken out of the frame for 50 years. So a very different environment. It's a little bit more friendly, I guess. So where to buy? The first thing to do is familiarize yourself with galleries that sell work of art in the area that you're interested in. So where do you find them? Go to artnet.com, as well as having a search engine for comparable sales. They also have a list where you can search for galleries by artists. So that's a very useful tool. IFPDA is an organization for print dealers. ADA is Association or American. I'm not sure what it stands for, but it's the Dealers Association of America. And then SONOA is another organization for art and antique dealers. So those are all good places to go to find galleries in the first place. You can also buy online. So like I said, invaluable.com, which is more of an auction, but rubylane.com as well, firstdibs.com. Those are all good sources to find works of art, because often some of them are not, they're private dealers or they don't have a brick and mortar store, but you will find some that are brick and mortar stores and they're a bit more established. And then lastly, art fairs. Art fairs are wonderful. There are a million of them now, and many dealers and many galleries go to them. So go, and then they're all in one place, which is great. So you get to know the dealers, you get to see all different types of art, you get to see what things are selling for, take notes and take photographs and for your own personal reference. I know I do that as an appraiser, so I know kind of what's out there and selling in the marketplace. So that's a really useful place to go. So what's the process? It's much simpler than the auction, right? You engage in a conversation with the dealer. You want to ask all the questions that you have about a certain work of art. Ask about the condition, ask about the provenance, ask about the artist, and how this work fits, into their entire work. Ask about the process. The dealer is there to really help you, and they will give you more time than an auction house specialist will. I guarantee it. Sometimes you can even take it home and try it out if they trust you. So as you get to know the dealers too, you can kind of do this. You can borrow a work of art, hang it up at home, and see if you like it. And they'll also often give you a discount. So always, always, always ask for a discount. Usually it's about 10%. That's what you can expect. And what's really nice about buying at a gallery, like I said, with auction houses, you have to deal with the commission, you have to deal with shipping, you have to deal with all of these things. The dealer takes care of that for you. So it's a much more simple process, and you can enjoy it. Look, there's only 3 steps here. Only 3 steps before you can enjoy your work of art. So it's a little simpler. Lastly, we're going to talk about art advisors. So what is an art advisor in the first place, right? And why would anyone need one? Well, art advisors are very in tune with what's going on in the marketplace. They know history of art, and they know what's going on, as I said, in the marketplace. So, and historically, they know what's going on, has been going on in the marketplace. So if you're a collector who doesn't necessarily have the time to do all of the research that's necessary to buy at auction, they will help you out, and they'll help you save time, and ultimately help you save money as well, because they'll know that you aren't overpaying on a certain work of art. The cons is that they charge an additional fee for their services, of course. This course, I developed it so that you would know the kind of behind the scenes of the processes that art advisors take, so you could be your own art advisor in a way. So maybe this isn't the most useful person for you to go to, but as you continue to build your collection, you might find that they have also different approaches and a different point of view that can really help you build and grow your collection in a different way. So it's always good to kind of keep art advisors in mind. So where do you find an art advisor? APAA is the organization for art advisors. The clarionlist.com is also it's a good resource in general for just any kind of art-related professionals. It's a good place to go to find some art professionals if you need an appraiser, an art advisor. We'll talk about appraisers a little more next week. But those are some good resources for you. And then you want to interview them. So figure out how much they charge, how they find the works, how they do their research. Do they get discounts from galleries? That's another pro from art advisors, is that they get to know the dealers, so they get discounts. And then another good question to ask them is that, do you usually take a commission from the galleries? Because if they do, you might not want to hire them, because they will go to the same galleries, and if they're getting payments from, hopefully they'll be honest with you, but if they're getting, double dipping it in a way, I don't find that to be very ethical. So that's a really good question to ask as well. And then they should ask you about what are your preferences, and then they go out into the marketplace and they find possible works for you. So they should put together a formal proposal with either works that are coming up for sale at auction, works that are in the galleries, so that you can choose. You can kind of pick and choose what you like and what you don't like. And then again, they handle and help with all shipment and other logistics, so you don't have to deal with it. So this is really like the full, this is where you do nothing. They hand you a list of possible things that you like, and you say yes, no, and you don't get the fun of kind of going out to the marketplace and finding things. But if you want another point of view, again, they're very useful and very, very helpful. So your challenge this week. This is the week where we really get to have some fun. So you'll see in your worksheet, I'm getting you out there, going out there to auction houses, to galleries, to finding works that you really like. And then once you give your worksheet back into me, I'll give you feedback, and we can talk about the process and what scares you or what intimidates you about that, and specific tips that I can give you to help you feel more confident in any of these marketplaces. So again, please turn in your worksheets, because I want to hear from you and I want to work with you and help you find really wonderful works of art for your collection.